On today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, the Florida Panthers go into Winnipeg with a lot of injuries, and they dropped the last one of this road trip by a final score of 5-2. Jacob Winans is here to discuss the loss and look ahead to the Florida Panthers returning home, all on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, December 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of today. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also follow the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. And don't forget to also send in a screenshot of your subscription to the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel and your 5-star rating on whichever podcast app you listen to Locked On Panthers, and send it over to me at LO_FLA Panthers via DM, or email it to me at LockedOnFLAPanthers@gmail.com for your chance to win 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers game versus the New Jersey Devils on December 21st at FLA Live Arena. So, Cats fans, the Florida Panthers on this last game of this 5-game West Coast trip, a trip that lasted over a week, didn't start off promising, got 2 straight wins in this one, but the final game of this road trip, where the injury bug was just hitting the Florida Panthers hard with still no Alexander Barkov, Anton Lundell a second straight game missing, Radko Gudas out, Patrick Hornquist placed on LTIR, all the call-ups for the Panthers like we spoke about yesterday. And just as not only I predicted, but my guests on the show predicted, Jacob Winans, we kind of saw this as a kind of like a scheduled loss for the Florida Panthers in this one, but still an opportunity early to make something happen out of it. But just it was just too much for the Florida Panthers, too much pinned in their own zone and facing off against a goalie who's back. Connor Hellebuck is back to his form of when he won the Vezina Trophy a few years ago. And Jacob, I'm not really too upset with with this one. Just after everything with the Panthers and with coming into this situation, it was always going to be a hard hill for the Florida Panthers to climb in this for this one.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about it earlier in the day. This seemed like a game, almost like the LA Kings game last year with all the COVID illnesses and guys in and out of the lineup. It felt like we really had no chance. We were a major underdog. Expecting to lose this one. I mean, obviously you go out and you play the game and you never know what's going to happen, but I don't think anyone is really surprised with this outcome. It happens. The Panthers are dealing with a ton of injuries. No Barkov still, which that situation is starting to get a little bit worrisome, given that he was expected to maybe miss a game or two, ends up missing the entire road trip, and his status for the game against Detroit back at home, we don't know. Anton Lundell picks up a minor injury. They said he had a good chance to play against Winnipeg, ends up not playing. Patrick Hornquist takes a really nasty hit to the head that somehow goes undisciplined by the NHL. He's going to miss the next 10, and then Radko Gudas takes a little bit of friendly fire, which puts him in the concussion protocol as well. So it's a banged up team. That game against Seattle, it was huge. It was a really big win, but it also took a major toll on the Panthers physically. You lose two key players in Hornquist and Gudas, and it's unfortunate what the Panthers had to bring onto the ice into Winnipeg. It was a team that was beaten up, a team that had a lot of minor league players that were slotting in for the first time this season, or playing bigger minutes than they're used to. And when you have the cards stacked against you like that, against a team like Winnipeg, who's been really, really good, has a really hot goalie right now in Connor Hellebuck, it was a perfect storm of this is just not going to be a good night for the Panthers. But with all that said, I do want to definitely say, I mean, the concern was all the injuries and guys out of the lineup and the call-ups having to fill the void. I can't really say too many bad things about the guys who did step in and play tonight. Zach Dalpe scored a goal. Chris Tierney got an assist. Matt Kierstead got an assist. Those are your three call-ups for the game. They all hit the score sheet. So Carter Verhaeghe stays hot. So it's not all negative. It's just when you play a game like this, you kind of expect to lose. And it's unfortunate because you can't be upset about this loss, but you have to look back at the missed opportunities in Edmonton. You have to look back at the missed opportunity before this trip against St. Louis. Those are the ones that sting a little extra when you lose a game like this, where you really there wasn't a whole lot you could do.
Yeah, and for this game, I mean, the Panthers they were just pinned in their own zone really from the start of this one, and really when you're already down with these injuries, I mean, taking 3 penalties in that same period, I mean, what helped was that the Florida Panthers, it's just been crazy in this road trip how you never have time to rest when a goal happens, whether it's for your team or the opposition. I mean, we spoke about it prior to even recording of how much of a problem Mark Scheifele is, and of course getting a goal on the power play, Verhaeghe scoring just over a minute later, which I don't know how you can justify taking Carter Verhaeghe off of power play 1 when Alexander Barkov does come back. And just immediately after that, I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois getting a spin pass to Kyle Connor. I mean, Kyle Connor is not the biggest guy, but just has a rocket of a shot, and just the it's not just Panther games, but just in the NHL in general, scoring is up, which means goals and bunches are also going up, and just the ability for teams to reset after goals mentally, especially, it's a I can't necessarily point my finger as to why it's happening.
Yeah, it seems like we're really entering a sort of a modern version of the live puck era, where scoring is at a high, and the skill, the speed, the young talent is starting to take over the game, which we've seen trending for the last couple of years at least. And the Panthers were a beneficiary of that last year, where they could score in bunches. We had a bunch of we want 10 games by this time last year. The Panthers could hang a touchdown on pretty much anyone they wanted to during the regular season. Special teams are playing a huge role. Teams power plays are more frequent now than they ever were before. The game is a lot of stick infractions are called, a lot of stuff you could get away with before, not so much anymore. So teams are finding themselves with 3, 4, 5 power play opportunities in a game. It's things like that are going to increase the scoring, and you want to be on the right side of that. And last year, the Panthers definitely were. This year, so far, they have not been. The special teams have been lackluster. The penalty kill has not been great. It's gotten hot in spurts, but it hasn't been consistently good. The power play, we're missing some key guys. It seems like we haven't had a fully healthy power play unit all season. Duclair obviously hasn't debuted yet for this year. Barkov has been in and out of the lineup. Aaron Ekblad has been out of the lineup for an extended time. It's a power play that hasn't had time to gel because they haven't had all their key guys. And then on top of that, when you have special team struggles, you have to be disciplined. And the Panthers have severely struggled with discipline to start this season. Really horrible timing on penalties. a lot of mental errors, a lot of things that could be avoided, and I know you're going to get into some of that during this episode, but yeah, a lot of undisciplined penalties tonight that really cost the Panthers, and some stuff that we could talk about where just a little bit more, like you said, pre-recording, situational awareness, making the smart play instead of the impulsive play, some things like that have really come back to hurt the Panthers this year.
Yeah, and just trying to read the situation, especially when you're down, just when it comes to just killing momentum for this team and any chance of coming back. So we'll talk about in the next segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football, basketball, soccer, and esports. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to getting your betting fix. Head to the website today or use a mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Back on this Wednesday, December 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, on this Winans Wednesday edition of the show. So, lots of mistakes we spoke about. We spoke about the 3 penalties in the first period, which the one on Tkachuk was very, very questionable on Brandon Dillon. Also, mistake very early on in the second period where Ryan Lomberg tries to take the puck all by himself up the middle of the ice, which a lot of coaches will kill players for that, especially when you have so much support on the outside as well. So a mistake by Lomberg, and the one that really, which before I get to the other one, that was also the play that got Spencer Knight out of the game, insert Sergei Bobrovsky, and even there, it was a good full 7 to 8 minutes where the Florida Panthers weren't allowing a shot on goal on Sergei Bobrovsky's, and that's where they really got out to their 25 to 8 shot on goal advantage in the period against Connor Hellebuck. But the one that really hurt the most was the Mahura penalty on Blake Wheeler, which a lot of coaches will preach. If you see numbers on the back, stay off the numbers. That's something that's preached. And even though it was a little bit to the side, you're close enough to the boards to make something happen and possibly hurt someone. And I don't blame the Jets for going after him after that. But just poor timing for the Panthers on some of these on some of these mistakes.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Ryan Lomberg had a really undisciplined game, made a lot of errors that we haven't seen from him, but you can't have those from your bottom 6 players. And then like you said, the big killer in this one was definitely that Josh Mahura penalty. That's one you can't have. It's a completely avoidable play. When you're hitting someone, the goal is to separate man from puck. When you're hitting someone in the back, you're not doing any of that. I understand it's a bang bang play. He thinks Wheeler's turning. He thinks he's going to hit him when he's sideways. It doesn't turn out that way. I don't think there's anything dirty or intentional about it. I definitely don't think Mahura is that player, but I do think it's reckless. And when you're in a position like that where you're trying to climb back in the game, that's a really reckless hit to throw, and you have to be safe with those kind of plays. You have to make plays where the end result isn't going to be a 50-50 chance of putting your team shorthanded. And he got the wrong side of the 50-50 chance there. And it's a reckless play that you have to hold up on making. I thought that was a really tough one to take. I felt like Matthew Tkachuk's penalty on Brendan Dillon was kind of annoying. Now, obviously, you want more discipline from Tkachuk in that situation. You don't bring the stick up and put it in someone's midsection, because obviously anything can happen when you do that, and they can make a call. But I think Brendan Dillon is also way too big of a guy to be going down that easily. He prides himself on being a tough guy, a defensive defenseman who throws hits and likes to drop the gloves. and he collapses like he just got stabbed and rolls around on the ice for a couple seconds to really soak it in. I felt like that was kind of ridiculous, especially since right before that happens, he throws an errant elbow up in Tkachuk's chin area. I mean, uh, those are the ones where you'd like the refs to do a little bit better job, but it happens, and you have to keep your discipline, which we've seen the Panthers struggle with in some key situations over the past couple seasons. So it's a it's a line that we're tired of hearing, but yeah, the Panthers were undisciplined tonight, and it's something that has to get fixed, or else it like you said, this is a league where scoring is up. It could tank your season if you take too many penalties. If you're shorthanded every night and you can't keep the puck out of your net on power plays, it could be a season ruiner. So it's something to get in check right now while we're still somewhat early in the year.
Yeah, lack of discipline on that one, and then the Brendan Dillon, when you talk about he acted like he was getting stabbed. I was thinking that he should apply to be one of the actors in the tourist attraction here in Orlando called Medieval Times. I don't know if you've ever gone to a show, but it's
Yep.
it's a pretty cool entertainment over here. But also on also mistakes as well on the PK. You see Mark Stahl and Aaron Ekblad getting beat on that one by Kyle Connor, which Connor, we mentioned it earlier, just a great skater for his size. And then of course you're down a man, so it's a little tougher. But Ryan Lomberg not beating Mark Scheifele to his position as well, and then Scheifele getting that second goal of the game. And then we spoke about also the missed opportunities and the chances. I mean, Sam Bennett led a rush for the Panthers going backhand. Connor Hellebuck just lateral movement, great for him. And the one play that we spoke about as well, that of Aaron Ekblad creeping in, pulling the defender, and then instead of shooting it, tries to thread the needle to Matthew Tkachuk and doesn't even get a shot. When you look at the TV angle of so much open net that he could have gone as he was skating in. So those are other missed opportunities that I saw for the Panthers tonight.
Yeah, the one that really stood out to me was that Ekblad one. Now Ekblad, he's got such a good shot for a defenseman. Whether it's the slapper or the quick wrist shot, he's a really high end goal scorer for a blue liner. And when he gets in that close, that kind of distance, you know he can pick a corner. We've seen him do it. We've seen him do it plenty of times. He's a 100-goal scorer. I mean, this is a guy who can put the puck in the net. He doesn't need to go for that tip to Matthew Tkachuk, but it seemed like an over reliance on Tkachuk there in front of the net. It seems like they're trying to run everything through him there just because he's been hot lately. And sometimes that's your best asset, is everyone keying in on a guy like Tkachuk there at the front of the net because they know he's so dangerous. That opens things up for you. When Tkachuk's presence alone opens up that wing for you to shoot it. You don't need to give it to Tkachuk. He's doing his job just by being that presence in front of the net where everyone is focusing on him. Sometimes his job is not to score the goal; it's to draw the attention and let someone else score the goal. And Aaron Ekblad had every opportunity to do so. Hellebuck's not a guy who's going to give you a ton of chances, and he honestly, the way he was playing tonight, he very well may come over and make that save, make a spectacular save, keep the puck out of the net. But you have to at least make him earn that save. He doesn't have to do anything if the puck never gets to him. So it's a shot that Ekblad has to take. You can't pass those up. If you're going to be the number one defenseman on the team, those are the opportunities that you can't afford to delegate to someone else. You got to have the confidence, and that has to be you in that situation. And I would have liked to see him have taken that shot. And it's we definitely don't need to regress back into a power play of overpassing. That is something that we've seen the Panthers work very hard to move on from. And we don't need to fall back into that pattern. That's something that'll drive everybody crazy. So
yeah. Yeah, and when you talk about Matthew Tkachuk just being a presence on the ice, creating for opportunities, I mean, even on that first goal for the Panthers on the power play, he's behind the net, just gets it to Verhey because all eyes are on him. People, but also you could have an opportunity to make people think that you're trying to get it to him, and then just go for the opportunity. But yeah, you're right. There's no guarantee that he gets on a goal on that one, but the and the sequence also in the game where I just threw my hands up and said game over was really that last power play for the Panthers, where Montour was held, and the one that actually took down the ref as well in this one, and just no zone time really whatsoever for this one. And I said it literally a minute in. The Jets were incredible on their back checks. They were just in great on also their pinches as well, and just not allowing just the Panthers to just get any zone time on that one. And that was just the moment where I said it's not their night. I mean, thankfully, shortly after the call up line got their goal, a rush led by Matt Kierstead before Tierney made a cross ice pass to Dalpe, which he leads the checkers in goals as well. So he's hot on both levels. So, but that power play, even with the Panthers cutting that to 2, that was their chance to make something out of it.
Yeah, we knew going in that Winnipeg has one of the best penalty kills in the league, and the Panthers, for the most part, got chances earlier in the game. But that one in particular, it felt like a 2 minute game of ice tennis. It was just the Panthers were bringing it in. It was getting quickly taken away, thrown back down the other end, and they were just trading. They were just trading zone entries the whole time. It was kind of ridiculous to watch. It looked a lot like the power plays we saw in the playoffs last year that really frustrated the entire fan base and honestly probably cost our previous coaching staff their jobs. It's it's a lot of the same thing that we just saw tonight on that power play. It was frustrating. In key moments late in games when you're trying to come back, those are opportunities where you just can't afford to get nothing out of it. I mean, you have to at least challenge the goalie, at least challenge the defense. But it seemed like that whole power play, it was wasted effort. It was nothing, and you can't have nothing power plays in situations like that. It was just flat. It was a flat performance tonight on the power play, flat performance in general, and honestly, this road trip as a whole, kind of a microcosm right there. It's stretches of good, and then it stretches of a lot of flat and a lot of nothing, and that's how you end up with a 500 road trip, 5 points out of 10.
Mhm. And tonight was a chance to get to actually 500 as far as the overall record for the Panthers on the road. Now they fall 2 games under 500. So it's funny because last season, when they set their franchise road record, um, they went a whole month without winning a road game. But it's just the thing about getting 2 to 3 wins together, going on a 3-game winning streak, and the Panthers haven't done that all season, and that's why their record is where it is right now, and just the constant up and downs after over and over again this season. And we'll actually get more into that in the next segment and talk about the next game, as the Florida Panthers will now return home to FLA Live Arena on Thursday, where they will be facing the Detroit Red Wings. So we're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment here on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Jacob Winans is here. And so Florida Panthers are back at will be coming back to South Florida. One game and then a quick road trip up the coast to Tampa Bay before returning home to Seattle for a 3-game homestand. But 500 road trip just feels a little like it feels like there's some empty calories, of course, with some of the good and some of the bad, and it's crazy because this one wasn't even the worst game out of the trip. The Calgary one was
Oof.
just hard to think about, and just team not showing up there. But then, of course, you have a goal differential of +8 in 2 games, where back to back games you have 10 players at least getting a point, and then it, best way to describe it is just a roller coaster in this season. And thankfully, the Panthers still do have the talent on this team to hopefully make something happen and at least get a 3-game winning streak going. Now, looking at the standings, Jacob, just 3 games out of a wild card spot. Crazy to even be looking at standings early, but we're past the quarter mark. And Detroit, their next opponent, they just went into Tampa and got a big win, 4-2 against the Tampa Bay Lightning on 26 shots on goal versus Tampa Bay's 46. So just nuts. And I think, and the Detroit Red Wings, they might have arrived earlier than scheduled. I mean, Steve Yzerman, the GM, was the same guy who basically built the Tampa Bay Lightning to what they are today. They're going to have a lot of cap space coming up this offseason, so they could. And so there was actually a report that they could actually be in the pursuit of possibly Bo Horvat when the trade deadline happens. And then some of the newcomers coming in for the Detroit Red Wings, Dominic Kubalik, who played in Chicago last year, leading the way with 10 goals. David Perron with the coming over from St. Louis, of course, Ville Husso, their goalie as well. So a lot of the new additions are complementing the Detroit Red Wings, and I know we were very critical of Ben Sherratt, the trade that the Florida Panthers made, but he's helping the Detroit Red Wings in deep pairs this season. A mentor to Moritz Seider as well, who won the Calder last year. This team is earlier than scheduled as far as their rebuild.
Yeah, I agree. So this game on Thursday is going to be huge. Where we've heard from Coach Maurice and some of the other media around the team that there's a good chance that Barkov and Lundell return against Detroit on Thursday, which would be a sight for sore eyes because we got absolutely caved in the face-off circle tonight. The power play was a mess. So getting your two best defensive forwards back in the lineup is a big help. But Barkov, he's a do-it-all player. He's an MVP caliber player, and the Panthers have sorely missed him. I can only hope that he comes back fresh and rejuvenated. And like you said, we gotta piece together a few wins at a time. So you get a 2-game win streak. We've had a couple of those. Winning that third one seems to be the big thing. If you can put 3 wins in a row together, 3 could become 4, 4 could become 5, and you start to feel it a little bit, which we saw last year where the Panthers were very streaky. They could get on a roll and stay on one for a while. So this is a team that has the talent to do it when healthy. Especially if you can get a couple of those stretches of 3, 4, 5 wins in a row together, and later this month, early next month, add Duclair to that. I think you're in a really good spot to head into the second half of the season. But they have to start doing it now. Detroit is a game that could go a long way to doing that. The way the standings are shaking out right now, it's still very early, but this is a team that we're going to be competing with for the entire rest of the season. I think for that final spot. I think obviously the Panthers are the favorite to get that wild card spot out of that race because Detroit is so young, so inexperienced, and the Panthers are consistently over the last couple of years. So it's something where the Panthers are the favorite, and Detroit is the young and hungry up-and-coming team, which the Panthers should know better than anybody that's a dangerous team to play against, because the Panthers were that team. The Panthers were the hungry up-and-comers just the past couple of years. So it's on a team we can look over. Ville Husso was absolutely spectacular against Tampa. Had 43 or 44 saves, a pretty ridiculous line. He outplayed Vasilevsky. Just the goalie duel in that game was crazy, and Husso outplayed him. Made some spectacular saves. I would be shocked if we don't see him in net for Detroit on Thursday. I'm looking forward to it. It's a good test. If the Panthers can get some healthy guys back in the lineup, I feel good about where the Panthers are going into that one. But like you said, that is a team that has added some really solid veterans to a young core led by guys like Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond, some really, really talented young players in there. It's about time they got Dylan Larkin some help. And even with Tyler Bertuzzi now out right now for 6 weeks with a broken hand, they have some real offensive firepower. That's a team that can score. And they get offense from the blue line too. Seider is great. You can't speak enough about how good he is. He's a number one defenseman already. They've got some real talent. And Stevie is great at finding those bargain signings, and Dominic Kubalik was one. Chicago gives him away inexplicably for free. I don't know what the thought process was not keeping him as an RFA, but no, that's Detroit's game. He's been spectacular. So it should be a good game. I'm excited. I'll actually be in attendance for that one. I'm headed down to South Florida tomorrow night to catch that game on Thursday. So it should be good. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, it'll be a early season playoff light. Kind of like a diet playoff game here early in the year. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Panthers bring.
Both you and Nick Fairbanks will be at that game on Thursday. Of course, Nick always goes to the Panthers Red Wings games as
he never misses a Red Wings game
for some reason, but also with the Red Wings also missing Philip Zadina as well, Elmer Soderblom as well. They're one of their young players as well. Mark Pysyk as well. Doesn't look like that he'll be playing in this one as well. Former Panther as well. So they're getting their wins, and let's also consider Jacob Vrana. He's out in the players assistance program as well for the Red Wings as well. So he's been missing too. So they're getting this success so young too for this team, and they're doing it with also these other guys sideline. And listen, I know we haven't really spoken too much about this name in a few years, but even backup goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic, who was part of the Calder Trophy race just a few years ago with Kirill Kaprizov. I know he's not off to the best start, but still there's a upside in his game as well. And they don't even need to call up one of their top goalie prospects right now, and Sebastian Koza was a really talented prospect in the 2022 draft. 2021, so they don't even need to call him up yet. So great situation overall in Detroit, and of course a new coach as well. Jeff Blashill's no longer there for the Detroit Red Wings. Insert Derek Lalonde, part of the Tampa Bay Lightning assistant coaching staff too. So bringing a little bit of Tampa, the culture, everything to Detroit, an original 6 team. So there's a lot of good energy there, even if they somewhat missed the playoffs this year. Even if they miss it, there's still very good confidence in the future of that team.
That is a team trending in the right direction, and if you're a Detroit Red Wings fan, you should be extremely excited about your upward trajectory there. And they've done a really good job of making it so that they can put this team together within Dylan Larkin's window. I'm very impressed with what they've built. They've drafted so well the past few years. A name you mentioned, Elmer Soderblom, I was actually excited to see him. It's unfortunate he's going to be out because people who aren't familiar with his game, That guy is absolutely huge. He's what, 6'7", 6'8". He's the man is an absolute tower out there. I was excited to see him, but they earlier in the year played the tallest line in the history of the NHL
The
with
third line,
Soderblom, Sundqvist, and Rasmussen. They were on average 6'7" or something like that. It's crazy what they've built there in Detroit. A lot of size, a lot of strength, a lot of young speed and skill. It's an exciting time if you're a Red Wings fan, and that's not an opponent the Panthers can take lightly. Even in the past couple of years when Detroit hasn't been very good, for whatever reason, the Red Wings always play the Panthers well. Those games are never blowouts. They're always close. The Red Wings are always a team that likes to be a thorn in the Panthers' side. And if you look back just 2 seasons ago during the division game or the division season where the divisions were realigned, the Panthers played the Red Wings 8 times, and it seemed like that was a team that the Panthers really did not enjoy playing against, really struggled with at times. So it's it should be an interesting matchup. I'm excited, and the front office with the Red Wings is building that team into what's going to be a really solid contender for a long time. They have to be patient, develop organically, and the fan base preaching patience, because the Panthers are just a little bit far, not that far removed from where the Red Wings were. Panthers have built in a similar way the past few years, and it comes to a head at some point, and the Red Wings are a team that eventually could be looking at their own President's Trophy race and becoming a perennial playoff contender in the near future. So that's an exciting group they have there. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Panthers handle them, because they're definitely going to be hungry for a statement win in that one and in their visit to Sunrise.
Yeah, and with the Panthers being so up and down as they are, there's more emphasis to try to get this win on Thursday. One of their 3 matchups. The next one will be in January in Detroit. So you're not gonna get no 4 times versus this Detroit Red Wings team. So your limited opportunities, you got to go out there. You got to go out there and get it for this team. It's going to be an ESPN Plus game with Bob Wischichen and Brian Boucher on the call on Thursday on ESPN Plus. So tomorrow we will be bringing in the host of Locked On Red Wings, hopefully, to do a crossover show to preview this matchup for the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings. And Friday, we'll be bringing back Nick Fairbanks to give an in-person perspective on everything between the Florida Panthers and the Detroit Red Wings. But Jacob, I want to thank you once again for joining me on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Jacob Winans8. And then for anyone going to the game on Thursday, you can definitely find me at FLA Live Arena. If you happen to see me in my Barkov jersey, feel free to stop and chat. Always happy to talk to Panthers fans. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob, and I'll see you next week.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to all the shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure you listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today gives you a 20-minute or less podcast on the entirety of the sports scene with exclusive interviews and the take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.